Well, the unseen Augusta papers revealed for the very first time, and it is just the beginning of the full expose into the UPA chopper scam. These papers show you how it's proven now beyond doubt that there was corruption. These papers completely expose the Tyagi brothers for the very first time.
The Italians are
4 days into the Agusta Notes newsbreak, more details emerging of the court papers.
The unseen Augusta papers is part of a 9-part newsbreak on the News Hour, and it's just the beginning of a full expose into the UPA chopper scam. The papers, me and our news editor Niranjan, who's with me in the studio this evening, will show how it's proven without doubt that there was corruption in this case. These papers completely expose the Tyagi brothers for the first time.
And Times now gets you the details, damning and concealed so far. Excerpt 2 from page 58 of the 225-page order, which speaks about the negotiation that began immediately after Tyagi took over as the Chief of Air Staff. Hashke, the middleman in the Agusta deal, said, and I quote, "They knew us for years. To be a bit of time, we were concerned with India as we had good connections and contacts in India. I explained to them about the Tyagi family. I expressed an interest. I told Marshal Tyagi was a member of this family and that he was going to be the new Chief of Staff, and asked if there was a chance to have contact with Dr. Zappa, who was back then the CEO of Finmeccanica, prior to having a contact with AgustaWestland." Messina then replies, yes, they explained how a third, a fourth, there was this gentleman who then grew up, who's now gone on to become the Chief of Air Staff, or I do not know if it's him or his cousin, I forget. An indication that they were trying to contact the Tyagi family.
This man Tyagi assumes office in the end of 2004, right? Congress government is taken over. He becomes Air Chief end of 2004. Then as the Air Chief, he meets Hashke, the middleman in this case of corruption. Right? And soon after assuming office, on the 14th of March 2005, just 1 month after meeting Hashke, he signs a document in which it is approved that the standards of the altitude these choppers should fly at is lowered, allowing this company Finmeccanica to play a part. So look at the speed with which the corruption happens here. Padma, maybe you want to comment on it. Look at the speed with which it happens. He takes over in December 2004. By January, February, he's met Hashke. By April, within 3 months of taking over, the Air Chief has already changed the norms.
The excerpts from the unseen papers very clearly point at how norms were changed, especially the height norms. There is a clear reference, the question of there was talk about the operative height of this problem, and they said yes. And there is also an observation which says that very clearly there was a meeting with the Chief of Air Staff, and that the act was signed which approved the lowering of the operational portion of the VVIP helicopters from 6,000 to 4,500 meters.
No base to that cornering. All what they are saying, all the accusations they are throwing at us, they are false. They amount to calumny. I'm saying the government is there for the last 2 years. What are they doing?
Excerpt 4 of the Italian court order speaks about how negotiations between the then Chief of Air Staff, SP Tyagi, and middleman Hashke began months after SP Tyagi took over. In this conversation in the Italian court files speaks about how Hashke, the middleman, had a meeting with Marshal Tyagi, which took place in February 2005, 3 months after SP Tyagi took over, during which AgustaWestland shows its interest to offer, reporting that its participation in that tender is precluded from operating height provided in the previous notice. On 14th of March 2005, the Chief of Air Staff signed a document in which it is approved the lower of the operating threshold required for VVIP helicopters. Just note the date here, 14th of March, which is exactly 4 months after SP Tyagi took over.
सर बस चलते चलते ऐसा तो नहीं सारी टेलीविजन पे बात कर रहा हूँ कि तुम्हारे खिलाफ कोई चलते यही पूछना सर मैं बता चुका है मेरे भाई मेरे पास टाइम अच्छा तो जवाब दीजिए सर प्लीज डोंट डू दिस टू मी सर वन क्वेश्चन टू टाइम्स नाउ सर
Another aspect that comes to the fore is the confession that a commission was paid. And here's the talk where the question is asked, was it 7% net? And they say 7% and 3.5%. So the measure of compensation, Hashke had already spoken in a previous hearing answering the questions. So very clearly, there was a percentage of commission that was paid.
नहीं है क्या? कोई नहीं है? While the latest revelations in the AgustaWestland scam has once again put the Tyagi brothers in the dock, despite several requests, the former Air Chief SP Tyagi refused to talk to Times Now.
Excerpt 7 from the Agusta notes is from page 163 of the 225-page order, which speaks about how India stalled the probe, or there were attempts from India to stall the probe. Here the court observes, and I quote, there were limits in the investigations because of deficient responses from countries affected by the case to assistance to the request that was sent. It speaks about how the answers to that could be a betrayal in substantial disinterest towards a more complete clarification of the facts. And the note signs off in this particular page with a note that is found in the cell, in the prison cell of Orsi. And this is what the note said. It said, call Monty or Ambassador Terracciano on my behalf to ask him to call the Prime Minister, in this case Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. This was a note from Orsi while he was inside prison. A note saying contact then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh.
Afternoon, sir. Would you like to make a statement on these charges, sir? Huh? Not at all?
In the House,
Sir?
the matter is going to be discussed in the House, or we'll do it.
Okay.
Another aspect that comes to the fore from the unseen papers is that there was a deliberate attempt from the Indian side to slow down the probe, despite requests for the entire documentation and details from the Italian counterparts sometime in March-April 2014. There is very clear evidence that points that only limited number of documents were sent so as the probe is slowed deliberately.
You don't know these people, never spoken to them?
Question, never in my life, you know.
And today Mrs. Gandhi also came out and said that this is a character assassination on them.
Yeah, of course, what she says, that is correct. I fully support her.
These excerpts part of the 9 headlines of the unseen Agusta papers as the expose continues. Bureau Report, Times Now.